Hey, welcome back to the channel. This video we're going to be working on the suspension, the driveline, and the intercooler system on the 19 Hellcat that we've been working on in the last couple of videos. We're going to go through the suspension and correct the 15-inch conversion installation and try to get some of the axles installed. And then we're also going to be finalizing the removal of the air conditioning intercooler system that the car had. It was just very poorly installed and not a super great, easy to work on design that allows for servicing the car. So we're going back to stock on that. So we'll be correcting some things there and putting it all back together and hopefully getting the car on the dyno by the end of the video. So right here is the mounting bracket for the intercooler pump, and it is all tweaked up and bent up. I don't really know why it's all bent up. There wasn't really anything mounted on it. Got it in the vise, bent it back up to where I was pretty sure it was supposed to be. I used another car for reference and got it back up in the car, and it fit perfectly. So we were able to mount everything the way it was supposed to. So yeah, this was all put back together last night. And it looks so much nicer. So much nicer. I'll see if I can put up a picture of what it used to look like with the AC chiller system in there and all of the hoses and wiring and stuff that they had. They had a lot of funky stuff going on. Wow, look at that. Looks like a car again. So, get all the little plastic clips in all the way around. Again, it didn't have any coming in, so those are all new. Unfortunately, I did not realize we didn't have this cover that goes under here. I'd like to have that, but that one's not as important. Maybe we have a used one we can put in there. I'll have to go look. And then on this side, we always put the factory type plastic rivets back in, which makes it just look a little bit nicer. Makes it look like it's never been touched. Pretty happy with that. I know it's something simple. People think you probably don't even need one of these, and I shouldn't have bothered, but I think it looks pretty nice, and it's definitely, in my mind, very important, especially when you got a pump sitting up here. You don't want rocks flinging up and hitting it, so. All right, we're gonna get the wheels back on and get this thing off. So something else that we're changing here. These are the lug nuts that came on the car. And if you can tell, well, obviously they look different, but more importantly, and annoyingly, one is a 7 spline and one is a 6 spline. And that's just not good enough, because who wants to get out a different socket when you got multiple types of lug nuts all around the car? So we're going to be replacing them with what we use, these guys, they're all the same all the way around the car. So wheel on, new lug nuts, it's gonna be nice. All right, so next thing we're gonna get started on is getting the wheels off, getting the rear end out of the car. But I wanted to show one thing that we're going to change that is wrong with the car now. So if you look, you can see that there's no clearance between the tire and the wheel well. And if I try to turn the wheel, I can barely turn it. No, I can't turn it. I can't turn it backwards, but I can turn it forward. So it's rubbing, it's touching. It's touching in on the frame rail, and it's also touching on the plastics just under here. So we're gonna fix that, and we're also gonna fix it touching on the inside so that you can bolt the wheel on. I'll show you that. I'll pull these wheel nuts off, and the wheel is gonna pop out towards me because it's being forced up against the inside of the wheel well there. So when I take this last lug nut off, it's gonna pop out towards me. See that? And then I won't be able to push it up flat on the hub. It's on the back side of the hub, but it's not on the front. So it's touching down in here. So we're gonna fix that. You should be able to bolt your wheels onto your car without having to jack it up by the control arm or pull it up to the hub by the lug nuts. So let's get that fixed. All right, so we got the first side done. This is what it looks like. So if you're wanting to do this on your own, you want to kind of go from here to just about here. And you can see on the inside, behind here, I'll show you in a minute, where you're able to make some more space. Right here, you can't dent this in. This little portion right here is frame rail. That won't go anywhere, or at least thick material. But everywhere here will. And then I also dent this little piece in and this rib the whole way along. And then I'll go in and clean this up and prime and paint it. But I'll show you what it looks like compared to a stock. All right, so I want to hop under and show what kind of clearance or what the clearance looks like from factory. So when I say frame rail, what I'm talking about is this section of thick material here. You can't dent that in, and we're not trying to cut anything on these cars. But what we can do is we can go bring this surface in to here, the whole way along. So we'll close this gap up, and that's what we do with a hammer. And that gives us an extra ½ inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch, which is just right. That's just enough. So have a look at that. That's what it looks like unmodified. And then this is what it looks like modified. So you can see the whole way up there, we've closed up that gap up against that thicker material. And then we've also flattened out the surface of it, all those bumps. You can see on the other side that we've got a rib, like right here, and then this pocket. So we'll flatten those guys out, and that gives us a ton of room. I don't need to mess with these. We don't need to mess with anything up here. We're just trying to clear the section width of the tire, which kind of sits right in here. We're not cutting anything, we're just stretching. So I'll clean this up, we'll paint it, and it'll look brand new. It'll look like it won't even, well, it'll almost look like there hasn't been anything done. So we'll do the other side, and then I'll get the rest of the cradle apart. We're gonna change some of the arms out and get these axles sent out to G-Force to have them put new boots on it. Hopefully we can get to that point today. So let's get back to work. Out of the car. I've got a couple control arms off this side already because I forgot to film that, but I'll get the rest of them off on both sides, get the axles out, get them boxed up, ship them off to G-Force to get new boots, and have them go through the axles as well. They're going to go and just check them over, and then can't really put the control arms back on until the axles are in. I might put them in the top or whatnot. I'll go and clean this stuff up, paint it, and then we'll just wait for the axles to come back, and then be ready to go. So we'll get this rest of the way apart and get these axles out and get them shipped. So before I go and take this the rest of the way apart, one thing I'm going to show you for the guys doing this at home. This axle bolt from factory is in this position, this orientation. When it's up in the car, the framework for the car sits right about here. So you can't get the bolt out. You know, you can get it out maybe that far, maybe a little more. You get out about that far and that's it. Now I know people say they go and cut this when the cradle's up in the car. That's fine, whatever. I pull the cradle out to change stuff. However, if you wanted to change your control arms after, or take the control arm out, or you know it fails, or you want to replace it, whatever, and you've put it back up in the car, it sure would be nice to have it in from this direction, right? Because then you can actually get the bolt out. The downside of that is this bolt is too long because the frame of the car sits right here. So when I do these, the 60-foot packages, which is essentially what we're doing here, I'll cut this down to about here. And then in the future, if I have to, or the customer, the next guy that has the car, has to change the control arms, he can easily get the bolt out, and he can do it all with the control arm, or I'm sorry, with the cradle up in the car. No need to pull anything, no need to drop anything. So we'll cut that bolt before we go and put this back together. All right, axles are out. That went pretty well. If I were to make these, I probably would put something here where you can get a pry bar on and pop them out of the diffie more easily. That was a little bit difficult. Certainly more difficult than the factory or the DSS stuff. But, got them out. No issues really. Oh, right. For whatever reason, these are stuck in both of the toe arms. I don't know why. I've not had that happen before. So I'm not sure. And when you spin it, it's spinning the whole bushing. It's not just spinning in here. So it's somehow the head is locked into this bushing, and I don't really know why. But see if I can get those out, because that's gonna be a pain to put back on. It's a pain to get off. But other than that, all good. So we'll get these axles shipped out, and I'll get this other stuff cleaned up, clean the cradle up. Obviously the sway bar is gone now. I'll be leaving that off because it just had the ends cut off and wasn't being used anyway. But we're making some progress now. Today we're back on the Whipple, the 3.8 Whipple White Challenger. Cradle's back in the car. Some of the control arms are back on. If you remember, we were waiting for the axles to come back from G-Force. And if you noticed, we only have one axle. So box showed up in the mail yesterday, and unfortunately it only had one axle in it. Obviously 2 axles went out. So we are trying to figure that out, which hopefully they can find it. The tracking did show that it got delivered, and I was not expecting one axle back by any means. So while they're figuring that out, I'm going to install the one axle that we have and get this side together, and got to do something on it. So we'll get to work on it. We'll put the axle in. The hub, or the knuckle rather, has been modified for the 15-inch conversion to clear properly so that we don't cut the wheels up. We'll fix the wheels. Maybe we'll fix the wheels today as well, you know, clean up the backside where they're all scored up. I don't know if I showed this before, but the inner wheel well has been massaged away and painted. And then I'll clean this all up. Looks pretty crusty. This is kind of just what happens when you have turn downs. The whole area behind that just gets covered in grime and dirt because it's just blowing up all the dust on the ground. So we figured that out a while ago. So we don't really like doing that too much anymore. But we'll clean this up, and then I'll cut the fender well for it. And all right, let's get it together. Here's the bolts for the toe arm. You can see that I cut them down in the lathe so that they would actually fit into the ends here, and that's why they were stuck previously. The head of the bolt was actually too wide, and it caught on a little lip on the inside of the toe arm and stuck there. So pressed them out, put them in the lathe. Now they drop right in and come right out. So that should be a fix for that. All right, so we've got axle in, knuckle back on, control arms all bolted up. Couple little tricks in here to make it all work. I won't really go over those, but we're going to get the fender well or the plastic liner cut to clear the tire so that it's not rubbing. We'll get that on. Also cleaned everything. So everything was just covered in a thick layer of dirt just from the turn downs kicking up a lot of dirt. But it won't have turn downs on it anymore. So we cleaned it up and made it look real pretty. So we'll get that plastic cut and get it on. All right, so the wheel's cleaned up about as best as we're gonna get it. If the owner wants to replace these, he can, but they'll do for dyno testing and some track testing maybe. We'll probably only do 1/8 mile because these gouges are pretty deep. But we're just gonna get the car back together. And cleaned up rather well. Obviously there's still some pretty deep gouges in it, but it is what it is. And then we got the liner trimmed. Now this was just done by knowing where they need to be trimmed. I haven't done any fitting and testing and all that. We just do enough of these that we cut them to look like that, and then adjust it as needed once the car's on the ground and driven. But that should be very close, if not just right. So we'll get the wheel on and see what kind of clearance we have up here. If you remember before, with the suspension at droop, the tire was hitting this and the inside here so bad that you couldn't actually turn it, and you had to pull it on up with the lug nuts, which doesn't make for a fun time changing the wheel and tire. And it's then it's not possible to run the car through the gears in the air, and just making it a little bit more professional. So we'll get it on and see what kind of clearance we have. All right, it's on. And right off the bat, look at all the room we have. So it was touching there before, and now it's got 3/4 of an inch maybe down in here, in the tightest spot. So plenty of room. And what that's also going to do is it's going to keep the tire from going into the rocker here when he's accelerating, because obviously it will move, but if it won't be grinding into that. We've seen those grind away and pull these off and pull the rocker clips off, so that won't happen anymore. And then obviously, so it's in park with a dry shaft in it, but you can see I can very easily move the tire. So it's obviously engaging on the parking pin, but we have movement, and that comes from clearancing up in here. So you can see that we've got maybe 3/4 of an inch of room around the tire here. So lots of room to play. And then on top of all of that, we have a lot more room on the toe arm. So maybe a 1/4 inch there, which is plenty. And then of course, no sway bar end link lug to grind into. So lots of clearance the whole way around. The brake line is out of the way, which is another thing that we see commonly done wrong. I guess it looks a lot closer to the tire in the video than it really is. Yeah, look, it does look closer, but it's probably about 1/2 inch away. But yeah, so the brake line is something that always gets ground through. This toe arm is way too close when just bolted up. So there's some tricks you got to do there to get it farther away, or it will touch. And then of course, this is the biggest change here. And there's a couple other things that, again, I'm not going to go over in the video. It's kind of our tricks to make this stuff work without touching, without rubbing, and getting it to clear up there where it didn't before. And now you don't have to pull the wheel up on the lug nuts. And you can change your wheels and tires easily and run it through the gears in the air. And you don't have to listen to it rubbing and howling as you're driving down the road. So that turned out very well. We'll put the rest of the lug nuts in on this side, and then we will have to wait to test drive it and confirm that nothing's on that plastic is rubbing until we get the axle for this side. Have not heard back from G-Force. I hope they find something, because we sent them 2 axles and got 1 back. So I hope that works out. But anyway, that's all I've got for this one right now until we get that other axle. All right, this one is finally mechanically done. And I'm gonna look under the car real quick, show you guys what's different. I believe we did a under the car view in one of the previous videos, but if not, you'll get to see what it looks like now at least. So before, see, this panel wasn't here. So we put that back on because it does hold on to the bumper and keeps the bumper from flapping around as much on the bottom, and it's nicer. It just looks nice. And the reason I believe it was missing, the cooler AC chiller lines were hanging way down in this area, so it wouldn't fit back on. You can see that it's got a wheel well in it now, or fender well, plastic. And then I don't remember if we showed the oil leaks before, but this thing was covered in oil. Every surface was covered in oil. And it's all clean now. So I cleaned the transmission, the underside of it, all the engine parts, so it should be bone dry and stay that way. I believe the oil leak was from the cylinder heads not being installed correctly. Well, the this 5764 bolt holes for the intake manifold were not filled with RTV or something to keep them from just dumping oil out. And the blow-by tubes for the supercharger were just like hoses loosely fitted onto it, so any blow-by that it had, which was probably a lot, was just dumping on the engine. So we've got an exhaust on it now, as you can see. And then so the customer exhaust, obviously, or the customer had the exhaust end right about here, and what we find that does is cover the entire underside of the car with dirt. And we've actually tested running a car with no exhaust versus a full exhaust, and 3 times in a row the car went quicker with the full exhaust on the same day. We put the car up in the air at the track, put the exhaust back on, and it got quicker with no other changes. and then we took the exhaust off and it went slower. On the dyno, it doesn't seem to make any difference for power, but at the track, it's quicker with the exhaust on it. And it's nice because we can actually watch the cars go down the track and see what's coming out the exhaust, watch for detonation, watch for anything else like that. So the exhausts are handy to have. And it sure makes it nice on the dyno too, because it's just easier when they have the turn downs hanging way low. It's hard to load them on the trailer, and it's hard to get them on and off the dyno, because the lowest spot on the dyno is right about here. And a lot of stuff seems to catch when it's hanging down real low. But anyway, so we supplied an exhaust for it. Fits up nice because it's just a factory exhaust. And it'll be quiet and sleeper. No one will know that the car is real quick. And it's not gonna lose any power from having an exhaust on it. We got the other axle in finally. No, I shouldn't say the other. We bought another axle just to get this car done. We still have not recovered our insurance money or the other axle, so we'll deal with that. It's not the customer's problem, but another axle that came straight out of our pocket just to get this car finished up. What a fiasco that axle thing turned into. All just to repair some CV boots. Should just put CV boots on it here. Anyway, it's all back together. We'll get it down and get it on the dyno. We did it. After a long process, the car is on the dyno. This one took a while. It was definitely a labor of love to try to make it look as nice as it could again. Make this Challenger great again. And it feels good to see it on the dyno and hear it running under its own power. There's a lot of little stuff, obviously, that went into this. It's not in the video. Just because I haven't had the time, and we're not here to really make videos. We're here to get the cars done. But it's not quite done yet, obviously. So obviously the tune's gonna happen. And then I've got some stuff to do with this intake. This is just what it came with. I would wonder if it's gonna make more power with this filter off. It seems pretty small. But nevertheless, this coupler is absolutely stretched to get on there. So I've got another coupler coming. So I'm not leaving these hose clamps like that. Don't worry. It'll all be cleaned up, and there'll be an air box in it, but this is just for the tuning. And then we have to charge the air conditioning because we took those lines off and there's no charge to it. And then we got to align the car too. So now it's got the 1700s, it's got the factory fuel line, and it's got our triple pump. Well, it's his triple pump 4 unit. I mean, we just buy them from 4 as well. And then it's all just been converted to use the factory style controller. So we got 3 controllers in here, controlling the 3 pumps. Trunk's all cleaned out, no extra bits, and wiring's all cleaned up to the fuel hat. So this is the fuel system that we use when we're making a lot of power with these cars. We don't do the return style system because the fuel system that these cars have is awesome. We've never run out of fuel on it, and we've never had issues with it. So we do the triples when we're making a lot on ethanol, or the duals when we're making a lot on gas, or maybe not as much on ethanol. We don't use booster pumps, so this car doesn't have any of those. Just try to eliminate the things that can go wrong. So I just keep it simple.